Hey family, welcome to How Love Works, where we talk about the principles for lasting love. Well, we finally reached the end of this tragic story. We're at, what is it? I think it's episode 17 of Married at First Sight, season 10. Well, guys, here we are. We all made it. Let's get to it. Let's do this. I have a lot I want to share. So let's start out with the two uh, easiest couples. Let's first go with Zack and Mindy. Appeared to me that Zack really showed us behind the entire season, at least I'd say about 80% of the season, and he didn't really put a lot of effort into trying to do anything to help Mindy in any way to have the kind of relationship she had hoped and dreamed for uh, when she signed on for this experiment. But I will continue to say that I think he had ulterior motives that were disingenuous to say the least. Anyway, uh, I'm glad that she found out that what kind of guy he actually turned out to really be. He was not as, white bread and wholesome as he was trying to make himself out to be. Even though he might have been a good looking country boy, he was pretty um, airheaded in a lot of ways. Um, he still talked in circles. People had a difficult time trying to figure out, what he was trying to say, what he actually meant, and you know, I guess he thought that because of his looks, that was enough. And I say and act and sound any way I want to say, any way I want to act and sound, and people just accept it because, I'm sort of a nice photograph or painting, and people enjoy looking at nice photographs and paintings. So that's Zach and Mindy. I think the biggest takeaway I took away from those two guys is that Mindy, she actually got in touch with who Mindy is and what Mindy deserves in terms of a quality relationship, and she made the right decisions to eliminate and close the relationship when she did. And it appeared to me that they seem to have been able to forge some type of relationship that was amicable for both of them. He kind of dodged a bullet, I guess you might say, to a degree, where he wasn't like someone who he could still walk down the street and no one would not care less one way or the other. But considering the circumstances we're all in at this moment, it's very difficult for most of us to walk down the street. Corona on you. Anyway, the second couple, we'll say Jessica and Austin. I'm pretty happy with those two guys. They show me that there is a a modicum, a as we used to say in college, a germ of hope in this world, and so there is still individuals out here who are still looking and seeking for real, authentic, and genuine connection and love, and they're willing to put the right effort into it in order to receive and achieve what they can if they have the the opportunities and the skill set and the competencies necessary in order to achieve the outcomes they're seeking. Now, we're done with those two guys. Let's deal with the three Ds, as I like to call them, the three deplorables, the three deficiencies, the three dingbats, uh, the three. I got a lot of D words that I could use to describe the Three Stooges. Okay, Katie, Derek, Mika and Michael, and of course, Taylor and Brandon. Let's, first of all, let's deal with Katie and Derek. All right. Katie. Katie definitely, she sure made it easy for Derek to fall in love with her. She made it so easy. I got to give it to her. Did a good job, girl. You didn't fool the old head over here. You might have fooled some of the youngins out here, but I read you like a rug. You know. I read you. I can see through all of that pontificating you like to do. Because one of the things that was interesting with me that I kept seeing with Katie, this was a common thread that was throughout her relationship, and I'm sure it's only because of the mindset she has surrounding it, and I'm going to deal with it going forward. Katie has always enjoyed when she was talking about her relationship with Derek. She's always enjoyed painting herself or framing herself as some kind of martyr. That's the way she likes to talk about herself, and that she's almost a victim in a sense. So when she talks, it's kind of strange the way she uses her language. On the one hand, she's a martyr. On the other hand, she pontificates like she's morally superior than everyone in the room, and she has more knowledge than anyone in the room. She's just, she has this mystical uh, knowledge, this unknown esoteric knowledge that only she has. Okay. And so, uh, one of the main issues with her was that she was saying that she wasn't physically connecting with Derek, no matter how hard she tried. It sounds a little bit like the same claim. It's like a form of the same claim that Zack used with Mindy. Well, there's no connection. I'm not attracted to her. Notice the pattern. Okay, so she's saying that there was no real physical connection. Now, from what I saw throughout all 17 episodes, one thing she did a lot of with Derek is she had a lot of physical connection. So either she has an ulterior view, she's using poetic language, cryptic language. She is not, being a male, I'm literal. But at the same time, I've been around a lot of women and I understand that often what they say is not necessarily what they're actually meaning. And so this doesn't mean it was something wrong with that. It just means that she might be using the wrong words to describe what she really is about. But based upon the wording she did use and the behavior she did uh, follow the language, it does lead me to the conclusion that she did mean what she said, that she was not connecting with him emotionally, and I'll explain that further. All right, now um, what happened, as far as I can tell, with those two was that uh, she was upset that after they moved out and the camera stopped rolling, she and Derek, they got an apartment. They went back to their normal straight lives. And what actually happens in when you start living your life, monotony, routine starts to set in. And so, they kind of lost each other in the mix. And so she confronted him about it. And when she went to him and told him about it, he agreed that, the marriage was no longer not a priority, but it appeared to be not much of a priority. Translation, you're not giving me enough attention. That's really what it meant. Okay, so she confronted him about it and he agreed. So that's her typical way of relating to men. She likes to confront. So, in typical Derek fashion, what he did is he pulled up his big boy shorts and he got to work trying to win his wife's heart, trying to win her, uh, uh, I guess you might say, her approval. So he did many things, several things, ultimately culminating in taking her to Nashville. I believe it was a trip to Nashville, which I said that he had wanted to do anyway. And he took her to Nashville, and of course, she does what she does. And she broke his heart and told him that she no longer wanted to be married and she wanted a divorce out of nowhere. She could have told him that before she went to Nashville. Interesting. Hmm. But I digress. Uh, she also was asked a question by the moderator, Kevin Frazier. He said, well, he did a lot to try to, reinstate the priorities of the relationship and the commitment and all the other things. He asked her, what did you do? She didn't expect that because no one ever questions Mother Teresa. So she didn't have really an answer for that. The reason I know that because the answer she gave was so muddled and it was just so wordy. I knew right then she's lying. She's just making stuff up off the top of her head. At the end of all of that wordy diatribe she was putting out, her answer was basically she said that I told him what he had to do for her. Basically, that was her answer. So, um, my view of Katie is that I had four things I saw with her, and I pretty much call her a hypocrite. She's just a hypocrite, because she called him a little boy, number one, to his face, and she called him a little boy to her father's face, and she had a whole lot of attitude. And Dad even said, is this what he sees when he's dealing with you? Well, I'd be scared of you too. And you guys remember that episode. She also was constantly acting as though she was insecure about if whether or not he would ever love her. Another act. And the number three, she was. It seems to me she was being unnecessarily argumentative and adversarial when it was just, as I said, unnecessary. And to add insult to injury, which I didn't know about Mother Teresa, I didn't know this about her, Miss Moral. Miss Moral, as soon as she got off of the honeymoon, what do you think she did? She decided that she was going to connect with her ex and allegedly, according to her, it was just a connection. They had, words, maybe drinks or whatever. But allegedly, according to Derek, they had a tryst, a a time of intimacy, bodily intimacy, if you know what I mean. And then, of course, she did volunteer later and say that within the 5 months, I mean, 5 months, people, 5 months. And she had a sexual relationship. She committed the A word, adultery, with her ex. Amazing. And so then, of course, I think that led up to her deciding that she no longer wanted to be married. Now, this is right after, I mean, seconds right after she got off that airplane after her honeymoon, allegedly she went and had sex with her ex, allegedly. And then within 5 months after the camera stopped rolling, she had sex with her ex. Go figure. Here's my takeaway. All right. It's not good to emasculate a man or any man, any woman, anyone. Try to steal their power. Uh, it's not good. She did that. Number two, manipulation is not a good thing. She did that as well. That old bait and switch nonsense, get him all worked up on the argumentatives and getting him all worked up on being confrontational, get him all worked up and being adversarial, get the man all worked up of talking about how insecure you are, that he may never love you. And here you are, you've already committed adultery, you've already violated one of the major vows in marriage. You've already done it, but you're trying to point fingers at him, bait and switch. You know, you're accusing him of something you've already done. That's far worse. All right. Common thing. Um, number, I think number three, demanding total devotion without giving it. Demanding total devotion without giving it. That's not practicing what you preach. Number four, she conflates love with sex. A lot of women do that though. She conflates love with sex. She basically believed that, you know, if the sex is not where, if she's not in nirvana when she's having sex with someone, then apparently she can't be in love. Oh man, you talking about immature. That's a clear sign of an immature. I would even go mentity level. I mean, you don't know what you're doing. She also conflated sex with emotional connection. Again, if you're not having that nirvana, taking me to heaven type of sex, then there is no emotional connection. Okay, that's her. And she also conflated love with happiness. You know, I don't know how many of us love people in our lives that don't make us happy at times. And no one can make us happy continuously. That's not possible. But only mature adults seem to understand that. They have a little life experience, so they kind of understand that. All right. Those are the things that I saw with her. And so let's go on over uh, with Mika and Mike. I just kind of sad that she threw a good man away. She might have jacked him up for a good woman down the line, but who knows? Mika and Michael, I have to say, at least with those two guys, they got on the show. Mike was acting, you know, like he was under some sort of uh, some sort of drug. He just staring off into the space, eyes wide open, you know, like this, not having anything to say, like he was some injured uh, drag queen or something, all upset, you know, and he's not getting the attention that he deserves. But anyway, Mika had she had the gall to say that, you know, we both contributed in some way to the demise of this marriage. And she even acknowledged that she was abrasive and she was a little bit hesitant and sometimes a little too harsh and strong initially, not giving and showing enough patience and consideration for the temperament of the man she was dealing with, because she didn't really know him. She didn't take the time to determine what his temperament was A lot of men can't deal with a lot of that type of behavior from anyone, much less a woman. And so she apologized for that. I had to give her kudos for that. I had to give it to her. That the girl was only 25, 26. After going back over and reviewing everything she saw. Now, of course, Kevin Frazier stepped to Mr. Mike and asked Mike what he thought. And Mike, after pulling teeth and, trying to get him out of his contorted ways and his half hearted answering and trying to talk as though he's some sort of professor or something, he finally relented and said, yeah, he contributed in some way too, based upon the way he communicated. Okay. Now, Taylor and Brandon, last guys. Taylor and Brandon. You guys know the two jailbirds. I'm gonna say this about those two. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if Taylor uh, knew whether or not Brandon would be in that bar or not. I can't say. But no matter if she was seeking a confrontation uh, with him, I can't say. I don't really know. Some of you can give me your comments in the video, what you think about Taylor and what you think she might have been doing or not. Maybe she, I'll have to accept what she said on face value. She went to that bar many times and that was her favorite bar uh, long before she got into a relationship with Mr. Brandon during the experiment. And she and Mr. Brandon got into a confrontation, as you all know. And all I can say is she got more than she bargained for. And they both ended up getting restraining orders on one another. Now, uh, my takeaway with Brandon and Michael was that they both are still too immature for an adult relationship like marriage. They're just too immature. And I give you three reasons. Number one is their conflict resolution skills were found wanting. They were non-existent. Period. And number two, you guys already know because I said, and I've said it 17 times at least. They both, as men, were too emotional, and they apparently their leadership skills also did not exist. There were no leadership skills. You didn't see any leading from those men, and that's tragic because when you have a man that's that emotional, he lives in his feelings that much, he can't be trusted. His judgment can't be trusted in a time of crisis. So that's the real problem I have with men who are overly emotional. Okay, now on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being totally irrational and lacking impulse control, and 10 being self-aware and emotional stable, they both have failed miserably. For example, Brandon, when he was challenged with any experience that he didn't feel comfortable with, he would become, as you guys know, very harsh and combative and hostile. While Michael, on the other hand, and at the other extreme, what he would do when he was faced with something, some emotional challenge, he would assume an arrested developmental pattern that all too often would shut him down emotionally. And Mike would run out of the room screaming, in a sense, I'm making that, he doesn't scream, but he would run out of the room and rather than rationally communicate what he was thinking, about the situation, which he demonstrated in front of Mika and in front of the whole cast and crew, and in front of I mean, so it had nothing to do with Mika. That's his profile. That's how he relates. Okay, so understand that if you even asked him, if you even asked him, just like Mika did, if you would ask him to communicate and to be clear about what he was really thinking, what motivated, he couldn't do it. He just couldn't do it. Okay. If you asked him to help you to understand him better, his default was always to lie, to avoid, and to blame shift, right? Or to minimize. So Mike is like a moving target when it comes to his relationship style and his skill set, his relationship skill set, which was very incompetent. He was very he was just totally deficient in that area. You know, trying to nail him down and trying to make a connection with Mike was like having a job. That's how bad it was. So, and number three, uh, their mindset, the mindset those two guys had. It wasn't a marriageable, or I'll use my term I just made up. It wasn't marriage centric. And the concept, in their concept of marriage, I can say this. I wrote it down because I knew I'd forget it. was it was driven by their fantasies. It's just something they believed. It wasn't something serious, and they believed that marriage was something that would gratify them. Period. And I'm going to say what I always say. Basically, marriage was designed to make them happy. That was the conclusion. Marriage happiness was the conclusion. It was the goal. That was the point of marriage. And so I have to say this because I always say this. You guys know this, but marriage isn't about making you happy. Ruminate on that a while. Marriage isn't about making you happy. Marriage is about making you healthy. It's about making you whole. All right. Now, let me prove this biblically. This is where you guys can tune out. I'm going to let it go after this. I went over, but since this is the last show, I thought I'd just say what I needed to say. May not talk to you about it anymore after. Well, I'm not because the show's over. Uh, Basically speaking, let's go back to the book of beginnings. You guys know that, the first book of the Bible, Genesis, even those of you who don't go to church. You know that. All right. Basically, there were just basically five. I'm killing that word basically. There were five areas, commitments that God gave Adam. And here they are real fast. He said, number one, it's not good for man to be alone. Partnership. He said, two, he was to work and keep the garden, cultivate. Three, subdue, take dominion, stewardship. Four, be fruitful and multiply, build and grow. And number five, leave your father and mother and cleave to your wife, and the two will become one. Right? Health or wholeness. Right? So, or complementarity, to complement one another. Right? The entire goal of all of that is to expand the kingdom of God. How do you do that? One way is to provide godly seed through marriage, right? Number two, express the character of the king of that kingdom. Express the character. Your marriage is supposed to express that. And number three, live out the kingdom agenda in all of your life, in every area of your life. Now, in everything I just stated in less than, 30 seconds, did I use the word happiness one time? Never even implied it, did I? So, that's my time. I thank you for yours. I catch you on the other side. God bless.